it comes down to this. Most people want to be lied to when the lie is something that they want to hear or get them what they want. So, you have people out there right now on the left who have been on the opposite side of the CIA, have been on the opposite side of all these government agencies for the past 10, 15, 20 years. But now that they might get them what they want, they suddenly believe them wholeheartedly. Like they just absolutely believe everything that's being said to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's pretty obvious. I think they would push back on that and say that we're conspiracy theorists. But at the end of the day, there's nothing.
Of course,
wrong
everyone's
with
rational. Everyone. This whole Russia thing is completely logical and completely rational. And the people the left is the smart party. The Democrats are the smart party. They're not prone to hysterics and flights of jingoism or nationalism or crying wolf or any of those things that they accuse the right of. Really, being a Republican and being a Democrat are two entirely different. They're just two different types of people because one is on the right and one is on the left, so they must be opposites, right? It's not as though both parties, both the elected officials, the establishment, and the highest people, or rather the sort of highest class of both parties, are essentially the same people. It's not as though they hang out together all the time. It's not as though they go to the same clubs. It's not as though they belong to the same social circles. That's not true. Being a Democrat or Republican basically mean that you're two different species. Oh wait, no, that's succumbing to ideological reductionism. That's saying that everyone, that the vast majority of people's life choices and experiences and can be explained by what vague political ideology has to come to. Well, that's just not true. If anything, that's the one takeaway we should get from this electoral cycle. The Democrats are just as stupid as Republicans are. They are just as big of racists. They're just as big scumbags. They are just as prone to chant for more war if it gets them what they want. And that largely this myth of the divide, at least when it comes to morality and intellectualism between the left and the right, is just that it's a myth. It's a myth that both parties have been propping up because the Democrats the Democrats enrich themselves by pretending that they're winning, and the Republicans enrich themselves by pretending that they're losing.
I do want to make the point that there is absolutely nothing wrong, seriously, with being friends with a Democrat or a Republican. But
there's nothing. There is a danger there. There is a danger there, and I'll tell you what that danger is. And this is a conversation that I've had with Adair about becoming too involved at the local Democratic level. Because if you spend a lot of time with anybody, you're prone to like them, and that makes you forget that despite them being a personally good person, I have no doubts that probably Mitt Romney is a decent person personally. I have no doubt that a lot of people who I dislike at the professional or I would enjoy hanging out with. I'm sure I would like to meet President Obama. I'm sure I would love to meet President Obama. But that's the danger, that if you spend too much time with these people, if you listen to President Obama speak for too long, you forget that they are so problematic, and it becomes hard. And that's why journalists shouldn't be hanging out with politicians to begin with.
So there's a difference there, though. There's a difference between listening to someone speak and having a relationship with a person, listening to the speeches and buying into all the talking points and knowing someone. I know you were saying a lot of what you were saying tongue-in-cheek before. I was just kind of...
Which part?
Well, the whole thing, how we're different species and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole team sports mentality of it, and that's how people get their rocks off at this point, by pretending as though the Republicans and Democrats are so different. And this is another barrier to overcome, not just when it comes to political ideology, but when it comes down to basically any ideology, whether that be like a religious ideology like Muslim or Christian, or feminism and men's rights activism, or any kind of ideological position you might have in your head, is this notion that these are divorced from your experiences, that you can somehow be a Republican or rich Republican or rich Democrat, and that richness cannot influence how you view the world or your ideology. Because functionally what that has allowed people to do is create definitions of pretty socially responsible ideologies, definitions of feminism, definitions of anti-racism, definitions of Christianity that just promote more neoliberalism. Treated as though, well, if you call yourself this ideology, you're you're just it. You can do it. You can basically just say, well, I'm a Democrat, therefore I'm a liberal, and therefore everything that I do is liberalism, and you shouldn't pay attention to the millions of dollars I have in the bank because that has no effect on my neoliberalism. You shouldn't pay attention to it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, and so like we need to start engaging in a nuanced conversation about how experience, how lived experience, how your race, how your class, how your gender, how your geographic location influences your ideology in a very meaningful way. Because let's be perfectly honest, like, you know, the feminism Hillary Clinton was espousing was awful. The feminism that Hillary Clinton was espousing during the implications of it were so damaging for so many different types of women. And it becomes frustrating to have to explain to somebody, well, listen, the problems you're identifying with feminism, because this is a conversation you have to have with people who claim to be anti-feminist, people who claim to be anti-Black Lives Matter, people who claim to be, well, I'm against Democrats or because they are X, Y, and Z. It's like a lot of the problems that you're attributing to the ideology, or even Islam, a lot of problems you're attributing to the ideology, a lot of problems you're attributing to feminism or being a Republican or being a Muslim is actually a problem with the structural and material conditions of their lives. Like a lot of problems that you're identifying with Islam in the Middle East is a result of poverty and unequal access to resources in a global market. It's not really a issue of Islam. Islam, is the way that it's being colored, but these are issues of poverty. And with Black culture, it's not a problem with Black culture or something inherently Black. It's a problem with poverty in America.